Hey, does anyone want to guess how the next episode starts? This music video is about the conflict between the people of the Undercity and Piltover. Apparently, due to Jinx's paint bomb in the last episode, a lot of people have rallied around her as a revolutionary figure, and for the past few months they have been resisting against the martial law. We'll get to that in a minute, but we gotta talk about these goddamn lyrics. I have more or less alluded to some of the lines of the past songs, but this one is particularly cringe. Oh, you want a villain? Let me show you how I evil. Oh, you think I'm difficult? I'll show you all my devil. Mispronouncing words to make a rhyme just feels like cheating, in my opinion. You got nothing to fear. Sushi glory hole, it's a good idea. What was I doing again? Oh yeah, lyrics. Gotta crush you all beneath me. You bitches are my pups. You drooling for a squeaky? Ah, someone try to help me understand. Dude, this thing better step the fuck off. What could have been ain't got shit on drooling for a squeaky. Good fucking god, it hurts my soul. I tried to decipher the rest of it, but aside from the chorus, I couldn't make out what was said, and I can't bring myself to Google the lyrics. It's too embarrassing already. I mean, I think I get the message, but did you have to use lyrics that make me wince in pain? Who am I kidding? This whole season is mostly pain. The song ends with little girl painting a mural, or painting over one, I'm not sure. Regardless, I don't know how she managed to reach double her height to get the hair. That actually is a nitpick, in case you want an example of how I define it. Regardless, it is really weird to have so many people follow Jinx like this. You're trying to tell me that people from the Undercity are idolizing Jinx, even though Jinx is the main reason they are being oppressed, and despite the fact that she has terrorized the Undercity as well as Piltover. You take one of these people and tell them that Jinx has killed several enforcers, including the sheriff, and that she bombed the council building, killing 3 of the city's rulers, and that she blew multicolored gray all over Piltover. What is a Jinx worshipper going to do with that information? Especially since at least 2 of them are easily verifiable. Also, she killed Silco, killed other gang members, killed Firelights. You tell somebody that you support Jinx, chances are they'll be like, ugh, that psycho that kills people on a whim? But hey, maybe we'll get something from one of the Jinx worshippers that explains their perspective. Aside from the obvious fact that she shot Gray in the faces of Piltoverians. After the credits, we get a scene of Caitlyn and Maddie doing a cuddle. So, the problem with doing a time skip like this is that we miss out on a lot of character development. How she progressed as a person, her coming to terms with the loss of her friends, why she shacked up with Caitlyn. Seriously though, it is quite fascinating how little we've gotten from Maddie. She just sort of showed up with her smoke gun and then went on a big old underground adventure that we mostly skipped. And now she's got full reign of Caitlyn's blue canoe? I feel like they are violating a writing speed limit or something. Also, it's not really a good look to fraternize with your subordinates, but I suppose Caitlyn has already done much worse things. Caitlyn says that she never thought it would go on so long. I don't know what I thought really, but it wasn't this. Maddie says that Caitlyn could call it off and re-establish the council. All she has to do is give the order. So Maddie wants the conflict to stop, huh? I suppose that's something of characterization. Caitlyn says that she won't give the order without Jinx, and that a withdrawal could lead to a worse situation. Maddie interjects by going, okay, Mbessa, pointing out the influence Mbessa has over Kate. I am kind of curious, though. What would the worst situation be, exactly? The Undercity is little more than a rabble at this point. All of its leading members have been assassinated. If you stop suppressing them, I don't see how that would make them more unruly. It's also worth pointing out that Caitlyn seems weirdly conflicted about all of the things she's doing. The last episode ends with Caitlyn as the dictator of Piltover. And the writing up to that point was like, she's going down a dark path. We skip a few months and she's like, maybe we've gone too far. Why would you tease putting her on a dark arc only to do a time skip and be like, nah, actually. There's supposed to be a part where she comes to a realization at some point, or has an experience that changes her perspective. Instead, it's like she goes, I'm evil, except that's mean, so I'm not gonna. You already gassed the Undercity. Unless you plan on doing something with ovens, there really isn't a way lower. Teasing a dark Caitlyn arc just to revert it this quickly feels cowardly. It didn't really make sense in the first place, but still. Kate says that Mbessa has done a lot to keep the city safe for now, and that she's teaching Kate a lot of things. We'll get more on that later, but for now we go over to Jinx. She's doing a kind of announcer thing where she's introducing some seemingly giant bug creatures that turn out to just be regular bugs. It all kind of gives me Tiny Tina from Borderlands vibes. which isn't helped by the visuals and the name she gives the bugs. Also, little girl is here, and from this point on, I'm just going to call her Grogu. I tried to come up with my own joke name for her, but Grogu is just too perfect. Anyway, some people might enjoy this as a fun moment, but I see it as another nail in the coffin of the Jinx from Season 1. We're not interested in dealing with her trauma. Fun bug fight time. Thanks, I fucking hate it. I mean, she's more well-adjusted here than she has ever been, and the writers are about to try and convince us why. Grogu's bug wins, so Jinx has to dye her hair blue. What you're supposed to learn from this is that Grogu is heavily inspired by Jinx, which is not a good thing, considering the kind of person that Jinx is. Jinx says, "I never got to do much of this with my older sister. She was more into hitting things. I had a different name back then. Powder. Stupid, right? I thought I was rid of her for good, but you kinda remind me of her." So, it was already obvious what was taking place here. Jinx is having a fun old time with Grogu, who she treats as a little sister. But then they just go and spell it out for you, in case it being all up in your face didn't make it clear enough. It's blindingly obvious what the show is trying to do here. So I'd just like to take a moment to remind everyone that Jinx's on-screen body count ranges in the mid to late 20s, and she deserves to be punished for her crimes. I am not interested in being manipulated like this. Grogu hands Jinx her gun as a way of saying that she wants her to get back in the fight. But Jinx says, "That's a past life, kid. Jinx is dead." Well, that's quite a jump. First off, you are Jinx, and you're not dead. A better way to say this would be that that part of me is gone or something, which I still wouldn't believe. What exactly caused this change? What happened in the past few months that led you to this point? Because it wasn't the plot line in the first 3 episodes. The thing that I feel I'm led to believe is that being with Grogu caused Jinx to be magically cured of her psychological issues, and she decided to keep a low profile as a result, which is pretty retarded. This is not a healthy way to deal with her childhood trauma. It's really just avoiding it by shutting yourself off from the world. But the writers of this season don't have an interest in exploring what it takes to overcome psychological issues. They only want to exploit the emotions of the audience to move the plot in a particular direction. If you want to put her on some kind of arc where she is no longer the psycho killer known as Jinx, then you have to get her to address her past and take responsibility. Instead, the answer here is to get yourself a Grogu to help you cope, which is really kind of gross. Jinx should not be around children, and the fact that this one idolizes her is actually horrifying. Maddie and Grogu have the same problem. I know almost nothing about them, and yet the main characters confide in them and treat them like their best buds. They exist to help move the plot along or exposit information, and little else. On to the next scene, we see that Ambessa is at the prison from the first season. She is trying to figure out how to control Hextech. She has a Goatman scientist in a chamber, and he pushes a button to activate a thing. It starts doing stuff, and it vaporizes him. It vaporizes the Goatman. Ambessa says, "How in a city teeming with brilliant inventors have we managed to unearth such unrelenting incompetence?" It does seem pretty unlikely. Impossible, you might even say. With a technology as revolutionary as Hextech, there would be prospective scientists who are desperate to get a chance to experiment with this stuff. In the first season, there was a whole science academy. Echo was able to read about this stuff and deduce how it worked, but Ambessa only managed to recruit the incompetent scientists? Sure. Also, I don't know why this Goatman needed to be in the chamber with the crystal. All he had to do was push a button. You can push buttons behind a wall of safety. You don't need to be standing right next to your science. On the way out, Rictus says that they can't be certain that the Black Rose was behind the disappearance of Jason Heimerdinger. Ambessa says, "Who else? The moment we seize control of this backwater, everyone with an inkling of talent vanishes." Okay, first off, there is this thing that they have done a few times where they crop to a speaker's mouth. It happened with Kate and animals. It happened with Jinx, but it's especially excessive here with Ambessa. You do it enough and it becomes a distraction more than a point of artistry. As if it was really artistic to begin with, but whatever. Secondly, I don't buy that Ambessa thinks of Piltover as a backwater. This city is the peak of scientific achievement, and culturally it seems pretty spiffy. From what I've seen of Noxus, it doesn't really overshadow Piltover in that way. Thirdly, we as the audience know that Heimerdinger and Jace were likely blinked somewhere else in space and or time. This means that their vanishing had nothing to do with the Black Rose, and by extension, most of the talent for Hextech would still exist. Also, I find it strange, foolish even, that Ambessa would facilitate the assassination of the inventor of Hextech when she wants it to be used as weaponry. If Jace were dead, that could slow the progress of Hextech significantly, even if there were others familiar with it. Ambessa says that they fear Hextech, which, when you can teleport people away, I'm not sure why Hextech would be that much of a comparative threat. Rictus says, our time will come, but you must be ready. We move on to a scene of a checkpoint. Rictus is perusing the lineup, and he picks out a person that is hiding some blue hair. And there is this shot of some kid that looks like they are going to try and help, but their mother pulls them back. I'm curious to see what this dumbass kid would try to do against the mountain that is Rictus. Why did you show me this? Rictus says to everyone, you have Jinx to thank for this. She is not your friend. She is not your champion. She hides while you suffer, yet you refuse to hand her over. Rictus is spitting the goddamn truth here. Just a quick reminder, she has sociopathically killed a lot of people from both cities, and the search to bring her down is completely justified. And the reason I have this scene of her killing the Firelight Girl is to remind everyone of what the Firelight position on Jinx would be. But they have Echo's number 2 standing in the crowd and looking angrily at Rictus here. He should be on board with this speech. Jinx has specifically killed friends of his. He should hate her. I cannot believe the lengths this season will go to try and assassinate even the smallest of characters. God damn it, she nearly killed him. The next thing that happens is Grogu sabotages the speaker system and puts on a display of fireworks. Rock music starts playing and smoke bombs drop, which causes the people in the lineup to push through. Good God, how in the hell did she manage this? For starters, how did she paint that monkey? Does she have freaking Minecraft scaffolding? How did she get past this barbed wire to mess with the speaker? For a 6-year-old girl to manage all of this is a logistical nightmare. Then we have these morons that use the opportunity to push through the checkpoint. Do you think this is making things better? The Enforcers and the Noxians are just going to beat your asses harder for this. God, and the fucking rock music. Why do you have to throw this try-hard cringe at me constantly? We go over to Kate and Maddie looking over the evidence. Kate says, it's hers, I'd recognize it anywhere. Maddie replies, that's where the similarities end. No body count, no theatrics. No theatrics? The fuck was all that bullshit I just saw? Kate says, you think it's a copycat? And Maddie replies, I think we made them desperate for something to believe in. I don't know. Throwing your chips on a sociopathic psycho murderer speaks more to severe mental retardation rather than desperation. Maybe all that gas had an effect on their ability to form rational thoughts. Maddie goes on to say that this event doesn't have to change what they talked about in their last scene about restoring the council. But then Ambessa walks in and asks for a private conversation with Kate. Ambessa says, I don't suppose I need to advise you on the hazards of professional entanglement. And Kate replies, nor is that the advice you rushed here to provide. Okay, so Kate knows and she doesn't care. I'm so glad we let this foreign warlord appoint her as dictator. Ambessa says, it's beyond question that the news of Jinx's return will ignite Zaunite resistance. It doesn't matter how many times the show tries to tell me this, I know it's utter nonsense based on the prior season. Ambessa goes on to say that the blade cuts both ways, because now we have her scent. Seems a bit speculative, but after months of nothing, I guess you go with whatever you can get. Ambessa says that she thought this development would encourage Caitlyn, but Kate says, was it for my encouragement that your man Rictus was instigating violence? Excuse me, I think I have a bit of the gray in my lungs! And also, Rictus was apprehending someone that is a follower of the known terrorist Jinx. This is a good thing. And again, his speech was on point. Ambessa says, you don't trust me. To which Caitlyn says, the blade cuts both ways. Ambessa replies, fearless child, you never shy. And then Caitlyn says, you have a recommendation? Ambessa says, if it wasn't Jinx at the checkpoint, one of them knows where she is. Kate replies, arrests require cause. I mean, what cause would there be to arrest someone that is a part of a group that idolizes a terrorist? Also, I'm pretty fed up with this self-righteous attitude from Caitlyn after everything she did in the last episode. Ambessa says, what greater cause is there than returning peace to this city? And Kate says, why is peace always the justification for violence? First off, no. There are ways that violent action can take place without peace as the justification. Secondly, I don't know why she's saying this like it's a deep revelation. Being violent for the sake of peace is not inherently a bad thing. It's contextual. In this context, we bring a psycho murderer to justice for her crimes, along with those that would support her. Ambessa sits down and starts literally stoking a fire because symbolism. She says, we've lost so many. The anger, the sorrow. I know it's tiring, but you will never rest knowing she's out there. Because of all the people she'll continue to kill. Or maybe I underestimated you. Maybe you have the strength I do not, to forgive and to trust in tomorrow. The decision is yours, Commander. In isolation, I kind of like this speech from Mbessa. It comes across as genuine in a way, putting in some truth along with the affirmation that it is Caitlyn's decision, even though Mbessa is likely confident in the choice Caitlyn will make. The problem is, well, how did we get here? Something to think about as well is the notion that Kate could forgive Jinx. Now, you don't necessarily need repentance for forgiveness, but I find the latter next to impossible given all that Jinx has done not only to Kate, but the city as a whole. Kate can forgive if she wants, but as the leader, she has a responsibility to the people to bring about justice. What do you mean foreshadowing? No, it's just musing is all. On to the next scene, we see former Counselor Salo getting another Shimmer session. He's bemoaning the loss of his station and status. Then the furry asks if anything was learned about the disappearance of Mel. Man, you gotta think that the people of this city are suffering from severe paranoia or something. They've lost like 80% of their former leading body to death or disappearance, not to mention the people responsible for the city's technology. Speaking of which, Victor is sort of mentioned. The furry says that there is a rumor of a healer down in the fissures. Her line is, "They say he can make miracles happen. I saw one. Like nothing I've ever seen before." I don't know why she's presenting this as hearsay when she's actually seen it happen, but we have bigger problems than expository side characters. Savika shows up to Jinx's Jesus Christ, what did you do to her hair? And she still has that stupid fucking slot arm, god damn it. She asks Jinx about the checkpoint craziness, and Jinx is like, I had nothing to do with it. But she looks at Grogu like she knows what's up. Savika says that the whole Undercity is buzzing, saying that Jinx is back. And they're all terrified, yes? Because Jinx was never a... why do I fucking bother? Hero of the Undercity, everybody. Savika says, I was thinking, and Jinx replies, not your strong suit. Yes, I absolutely wanted this character to turn into the abomination that is Harley Quinn. Savika goes on to say that it would make a lot of difference if Jinx showed up, because she's a symbol. And Jinx is like, you want a symbol? And then she tries to flip her off with her missing finger. Are we having fun yet? Because I am in misery. Reese's Puffs, fucking... Savika continues, Silco spent his whole life trying to rally the Undercity. Stupid joke that it is, you have the chance to pull it off. It's more like insane nonsense. What did she do last season that would make her a symbol? Acts of violence and terror? If that's what the Undercity wants to rally around, I say fuck 'em. And in this season, all she did was shoot multicolored gray into Piltover, which could have seriously injured or even killed people from the Undercity. You know people from both sides spend time in the other, right? Savika says, we're having a rally tonight at Vander's statue, which includes Firelights, Jinxers, and anyone else she can bring to the table. I like to imagine that somewhere in the world there is a brain-dead paraplegic with Down syndrome that heard this and had enough presence of mind to say, are you fucking retarded? You are bringing all of the major groups of the Undercity to the same location in a public space while Piltover is cracking down all over? Does Savika's new hairdresser provide lobotomies as well? Savika is like, stick your head in the dirt if you want, but this fantasy you're living won't last forever. She goes to leave and Jinx is like, don't trip on the way out. Man, it feels like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Some alien creature is taking over Jinx to make her say stupid shit constantly. Can you imagine if you had a friend that was taken over by a Harley Quinn? Oh god, that's a horrifying thought. Invasion of the Harley Quinns. Where an alien takes over humanity and makes them say snarky bullshit constantly? Jinx goes off to talk to Silco's chair. She starts with, giving me the silent treatment. Between you and Grogu, I'm losing my snappy comebacks. Where are the writers? I'm gonna kill them. She says, me, a hero? How screwed up is this place? I know Savika's right, and I probably owe it to you, but I've got something going now. A friend, and I don't want to mess it up. Maybe that's what it was like for you. If you care so much about me playing your stupid revolution game, speak up now. Or I guess you're really gone, and there's no reason to stay here anymore. What a crock of shit that all was. I've been over the retarded hero shit, but to try and play off Jinx and Silco's relationship as positive like this is really fucking gross. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that Jinx shouldn't think of it positively in her own weird way. What I am saying is that the show should not be portraying it positively. It's compared to Jinx's relationship with Little Girl, which the show believes is positive, despite the fact that it's actually horrifying. Silco adopted Jinx because they had a shared experience of being abandoned / betrayed by someone they cared about. He raised her, taught her the life of a killer, and in some of the best goddamn stuff from the first season, he is presented with a choice between the cause and her. He makes it explicit to her that everyone else can rot, as long as they have each other. He even reaffirms this with his dying words.
I never would have given you to them. Not for anything.
What happened to watch it all burn? Does anyone remember that line from 2 episodes ago? Anyone? Savika's right? It shouldn't even be possible for you two to have a conversation. God damn this schizophrenic nonsense. Next we get a compilation of stuff. Kate is lighting a lantern at the counselor memorial. Rictus is beating the crap out of a jinxer, more power to him. And Echo's number 2 is lighting a lantern for Echo, who they have added to their memorial painting. Hey, aren't you faggots forgetting someone? Little fluffy dude hung around and helped out for a couple of months, even though he should have been at a memorial. He was the fucking founder of the city you live in, for Christ's sake. Hasn't he at least earned a goddamn Pez dispenser or something? Assholes! Also, Savika is looking at Vander's statue. I would be curious to know what she thinks about everything, considering she facilitated Vander's death. But this season doesn't give a shit about her. She is Jinx's sidekick now. Also, Grogu is putting on some makeup. I hope she dies of lead poisoning. Everyone is gearing up for the meeting that is taking place out in the open where enforcers could easily find and apprehend them. Also, the mad scientist is here. Why does he care about the politics of these two factions? He didn't strike me as the type to care about anything other than the science he was working on. Anyway, Savika is giving a speech about how things are hard and we need to come together and... It's boring. You're boring. Stop boring everyone. The people aren't convinced and start asking for Jinx. And you know what? I'm starting to change my mind on gassing the Undercity being a bad thing. Grogu shows up and lights a flare. I'm not sure if people think she's Jinx, or if they just start raising their fists in some kind of solidarity. Savika raises her claw, that stupid-ass giant claw. I hope someone throws a spear in it.
You're all under arrest!
Yeah, Rictus, my man! He just starts beating the crap out of everyone and it's glorious. Grogu gets upset and jumps down onto him. She throws a few punches and then he just grabs and throws her. You know, it really is a testament to how shit of a character she is that I was hoping Rictus would just break her neck. If you had me rooting for the death of a child, you fucked up majorly with your storytelling. Unless that was your intention, but it wasn't here. They also take the mad scientists, but not before he cuts himself. The blood droplets activate the beast he was working on, then we go back over to Jinx. She's looking for Grogu, but Savika comes in and is like, "They got her!" I'm sorry, Savika with one arm was able to fight her way out of this mess and stumble all the way back here? Is there just a trail of her arm goo leading here? At the news that Grogu has been taken, Jinx starts having one of those freakout sessions where she hears voices in her head. And remember, if you or a loved one is suffering from severe mental illness, don't adopt a child to use as a coping mechanism, no matter how appealing this goddamn season tries to make it look. Somehow, even after saying all that, I feel like I'm understating how awful this is. Anyway, the prisoners from the rally are on the cable car.
Grogu was looking nervous,
But the creepy mad scientist with the bleeding hand assures her that they won't be in prison long. So, I have a question. Why is Piltover sending a 6-year-old child to their island prison? I know that Vi was sent there, but she was a teenager that was incarcerated by the new sheriff, and for reasons that were kind of personal to him. That being that he wanted to try and preserve a life after more or less unwittingly facilitating a lot of death. Meanwhile, this kid is just a brat. It wouldn't be worth the time, effort, or the negative publicity. Next we get a few shots of the mad scientist's beast following the blood trail. I'm curious what it will do once it reaches those cable cars, but I'm sure the writers will come up with something clever. Jinx and Savika are watching the cable cars from a distance. Jinx says, "I don't suppose you can swim, Lefty." It is quite funny how fast they gave up on the return of the voices in her head. They do it really quick just to pretend like they give a shit, and then she immediately goes back to being a snarky cunt. Because a meaningful exploration of mental illness isn't fun, and we're here to have fun. Aren't you having fun, you little bitch? Jinx is like, "Well, only leaves the fun option." And Savika goes, "I'm going to hate this, aren't I?" Oh, I get it. It's because Jinx is a fun, silly character, and that does fun, silly things. And Savika is a straight man. Is this more or less the reaction you were hoping for, or did you actually just not give a shit? So this guard is patrolling and swinging her weapon around for funsies, because this sequence was written by a witless hack. The Enforcers, the police unit of Piltover, have recruits that play around with their weapon. Pro tip, if you ever find yourself on even the slightest of law enforcement, don't fucking do this. But putting that aside, there was a point when Enforcers were a threatening presence, and Jinx and Savika have managed to find the one recruit that is a total asshat. Jinx reveals herself and goes, "Ha, it's me, your vile villainess, the author of your nightmares." Good fucking god, this isn't Jinx. This is a goddamn skinwalker. You're fucking poisoning my senses with this bastardization of a character. The Enforcer is like, "Who are you?" And Jinx goes, "I'm Jinx." And the Enforcer is like, "Never heard that one before." And Jinx is like, "You're not gonna haul me in? Claim the prize?" And the Enforcer is like, "You expect me to believe that Jinx wears pants like that?" And Jinx goes, "What's wrong with my pants?" And the Enforcer goes, "You look like a half-eaten circus tent." And then Savika comes in and bashes the Enforcer, thus putting an end to one of the most excruciating exchanges in recent memory. Whoever wrote this should go back to smearing their shit on a wall. Imagine the luck in not getting a competent Enforcer. You put a soldier worth a damn here and they immediately aim their gun and call the other Enforcers in the area. Even if you don't think she's actually Jinx, she's still claiming to be a wanted terrorist, so you arrest her all the same. Jinx puts on the Enforcer's outfit and pretends that Savika is her prisoner. They get on a car with a bunch of Enforcers, and Jinx is muttering to herself about what the other Enforcer said. And Savika says, "Can you stay focused?" None too quietly either. Another Enforcer starts trying to hit on Jinx from across the car, and she flips him off with her new robot finger, which is adorned with a Jinx-style smiley face. You would think the Enforcers would recognize this kind of stuff, since they have been tracking Jinx for a few months now. But it's been clear that the goal was fun over function or logic. Jinx takes Savika to the desk to get her checked in, but who should walk past but Ambessa? They do this thing like, "Oh no, will Ambessa notice the obvious blue hair that is sticking out of the Enforcer hat? How intense." She doesn't, so they move on to the elevator. The two of them make it down to the cell block and knock out some guards. Then they start pulling all of the levers to open the cells. Jinx goes, "Here I am, your big fat hero." And they start walking out and touching her. It's actually quite fascinating. I don't think I have ever seen a story try so hard to convince me of an impossibility. The show keeps insisting that this is how things are now, despite all of the reasons it doesn't work. They even have Echo's number 2 do a nod of approval. All of his friends that she is personally killed, and he's just like, "Slay, Queen Jinx." Look, even the Whore Master agrees. Anybody else? Maybe get Jericho to give a thumbs up. You could have Marcus's daughter come by and be like, "I'm sorry my dad got in your way. Remember that guy she shot that got sent to this prison?" You could have him come by and be like, "It's okay, because of you I found love and a reason to go on living." You probably think I'm joking, but if you haven't seen this season, then you are in for a hefty bit of fuckery. Also, once these people get to the top of the elevator, what do you think is going to happen? An Enforcer sees them, pulls the alarm, and then everything gets locked down. I just imagine the writers would be like, "Well no, the Beast of Jervudun is coming, so everything's going to work out." As if a disparate event makes up for the lack of escape plan. Ambessa is by the cars, thinking about the blue-haired Enforcer she saw, when a broken car rolls up carrying the Beast. So, did it get on the car and pull the lever to make it go across? Okay. Ambessa gets ready to fight. I'm sure it would have been entertaining if they didn't cut away from it. One has to wonder how Ambessa survived an encounter with such a force, because they are not going to tell you. Jinx runs down the cell block to find Grogu, because her cell is the only one that was broken and wouldn't open. They have a happy reunion while I just sit here with a fluoride stare. A group of Enforcers come down to stop the escape, but the Beast starts coming down the elevator behind them. I think it just crashed its way down the shaft, but I'm kind of imagining it in the elevator pushing buttons and just standing there as elevator music plays. It smashes out and starts slaughtering the Enforcers, while what I feel like describing as doom music plays in the background. Now, I have a weakness for this kind of hard metal, or whatever you want to call it, but I'm not really sure it fits this scene. This Beast is pretty horrific, and this music gives more of a badass vibe. Jinx is like, "Get Grogu out of here," and Savika is like, "You really are and Jinx cuts her off and says, "Big fat hero." You almost wonder if the writers are just trying to gaslight themselves at this point. Savika takes Grogu as Jinx starts fighting the Beast. But all the while, Grogu is like, "No, we have to go back to her." Sorry, I just don't care how this kid feels. Who even is she again? Savika gets to the top of the elevator and sees that the beast killed a bunch of enforcers, but all of the prisoners are fine somehow. Now, I will admit that I find the fight scene between Jinx and the beast pretty entertaining visually, but I have to ask the question, how did we get here? Well, it was a series of baffling decisions and contrivances. The rally that took place was such a stupid idea. All of the big players in the Undercity in one place in the middle of the day in public. You don't need to be a Heimerdinger to know that that is a monumentally retarded idea. Then you have mad scientist there, even though his motivations don't seem at all aligned with either city. And you have a 6-year-old girl get sent to prison, like Piltover is some kind of Fourth Reich, even though Kate did the gas thing and became the Führer. But let's not go into how retarded those things were again. Then one-armed Savika escapes, somehow, and is able to go and tell Jinx. Then you have the piss-witted series of events that led them into the prison. It is an avalanche of stupid that buries the payoff of the Jinx vs. Beast scene. But we're not even done yet. The Beast gets the better of Jinx, and she's about to pull the pin on a grenade, as if that would do anything against this monster. And the Beast grabs her and gets a good look at Jinx, even though her hair is covering her eyes, but whatever. The Beast's eyes change color, and it says, "Powder." And that's the end of the episode. So yeah, the Beast is Vander. Man, the contrivances go back even decades, huh? This thing was content to slaughter everyone without a second look, but when it comes to Jinx, goddess of the writers, it takes plenty of time to look her over. Man, as if Act 1 wasn't bad enough with the assassination of most of the characters. Now they have to make them out to be idiots as well. And Bessa retroactively takes a lot of damage for facilitating the assassination of Jace, when she needed him to work the Hex Tech. Then she is way too slow to notice Jinx, when so many signs point to something being wrong. Then you have Savika with one of the dumbest moves in the history of the show. Let's all go to a public place to discuss our resistance plans. What could effing go wrong? I'll tell you what could go wrong. The freaking Chad that is Rictus will show up and beat the crap out of everyone. I think part of the reason I like him so much is that he is the one character that displays competence and a sense of logic. They spend months searching for Jinx, and in the span of a day he gets closer than anyone. Albeit because they were really retarded. It's funny to think how indignant Caitlyn got because of his success. Speaking of which, it is pretty amusing how much they don't want to commit to things in this season. Caitlyn nearly did a 180 and it all happened off screen. I can't take the stuff they do seriously when it will change on a whim like this. And of course, the obvious problem of Jinx. She's no longer the character from the first season. The severe mental issues disappear when she gets a little Grogu in her life. I just find that really repugnant and disrespectful to the character. And the constant Harley Quinn lines are giving me disassociation. And the fact that they are trying to build her up as a hero of the Undercity, despite how impossible that is just making it clear how the meta feels about her, rather than how the world would feel. And finally, I want to talk about the mad scientist and Vander. What was the mad scientist's plan? He goes to this obvious trap and then activates a raging beast that tracks him to a prison, presumably to rescue him. It feels like this beast could have just as easily killed him. I mean, once it reaches his cell, does it just go into nanny mode and carry the scientist away? You might try to tell me that it will be explained later, but you'll forgive me if I don't have faith in that. As for Vanderbeest, he can track a blood trail all the way across the city, across a cable car, and deep into a prison. That is pretty nutty. And then the beast has a fight with Jinx. I feel like the first hit should have been enough to kill her, but she manages against it for a good while. Also, the more I think about it, rock music doesn't really work here. It's more hype than horror, and this unprecedented monstrosity is not cool for any of the characters, especially not these enforcers. And to have it all end with him saying powder? Really? You couldn't have there be any ambiguity, huh? Never mind that Jinx should have been dead before that point. It just speaks to a continual pacing problem with this entire season. We gotta keep the story moving, but we will still waste time with some of the most worthless of comedy. I hate to tell you this, it's going to keep getting worse.
Bitches in my pot, you're drooling for a